How can something so very simple with so few ingredients taste so good? Well, it's all in the technique. Today we are using classic French techniques to create the ultimate French bistro breakfast: soft scrambled eggs with crushed tomatoes, or œuf brouillis avec concassé de tomate.
Hey everybody, it's Walter from Artistic Gourmet Adventures. My wife Kim and I own this unique small group tour company where we host groups of 6 to 12 guests for 1 week luxury adventures in beautiful locations throughout Europe and the United States. I have the privilege of being the adventure chef, creating and preparing daily gourmet meals for our guests. We also enjoy creating in-home private dinners for clients and friends when we're back in the States. Many of our guests request our recipes and want to learn cooking tips. So, in this video series, from our cozy home kitchen here in the beautiful Loire Valley of France, we will demonstrate a wide variety of recipes, from culinary classics to originals, as well as covering professional kitchen techniques for the home chef. For more information on Artistic Gourmet Adventures, check our website, linked in the description below. Now, let's start cooking!
I am super excited about this dish today because it's not only is it one of my favorite dishes to make because it involves some classic French techniques. It's just a lot of fun, and it's a very simple dish, but it involves some techniques that make it so good. But one of the reasons this dish has such a fond memory for me is, many of you know, I went to Le Cordon Bleu in Paris for cooking school. And the day that we learned to do this dish, we had one of the past grandmaster chefs of Le Cordon Bleu come into our class as a guest. And he happened to come over to my station while we were doing this dish. And the name of this dish in English is soft scrambled eggs with crushed tomatoes. In French is œuf brouillis avec concassé de tomate. But he was trying to speak English that day, so he came over to my station and he said, "No, the eggs are crumbled, not murdered." And so from that point on, I started calling these crumbled eggs, because he couldn't say the word scrambled. He would say crumbled. So for that reason, this is one of my favorite memories from cooking school, as well as one of my favorite dishes. But on to the dish itself. We have some incredible ingredients. I've got some very fresh eggs here from my wonderful neighbor across the street. So we've got some beautiful organic eggs. We've got an onion. We're going to use about half of that onion. And we've got some fresh tomatoes from our garden this morning. And we've got some fresh thyme from our herbs. And some beautiful, yes, you guessed it, organic French farm butter. What could be better? So all of these ingredients are not to be skimped on. So the first thing that we're going to do is, the first technique we're going to talk about is how to concasser a tomato. Okay, the word concasser means crushed. But the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to peel the tomato, and to do that we will make a little X in the bottom of the tomato like that, and we'll remove the belly button. Same thing with the second one. And so the process here is that we're just going to softly blanch these eggs, literally for about 15 seconds. So we've got our blanching water on. We'll put these tomatoes in the blanching water, and then we will shock them. To blanch our tomatoes, we've got our water already boiling, and we'll put those in, and they literally stay in there for about 15 seconds. That's it. And in the meantime, I've got some nice ice water here, ice cold water, so that we can shock those when they come out. And let's give them 30 seconds. And this process, just it loosens the skin, and then once you shock them, in the ice cold water, that helps the skin to just release. So that part is done. All right, so we'll leave those for just a few minutes and we'll let that skin loosen up. In the meantime, we'll prepare our onion. Okay, our tomatoes sat in the little ice cold water for a few minutes, and just look how easy, nice and simple that is, just to pull that skin away. All right, very good. So 1 tomato and 2 tomatoes. Or you could also use your little paring knife to do that. Okay. You know, part of the reason that you don't want to leave those tomatoes in that boiling water for too long is you don't want the tomatoes to actually boil in the water. You don't want to cook them that way. You want to be able to cook them the way that you want to cook them. All right, so we'll set those aside for just a second. And so this first technique we're talking about with the onions, it's called ciseler. Ciseler is a French word meaning to chisel. And this is the finest dice that you can do with an onion. So what I've done is I've cut my onion in half, and on the opposite of the root end, let's use this one. I'm just going to trim it back a little bit. We are going to make some vertical swipes, just like this. And it helps to use a very sharp paring knife when you're doing this. It just allows you a little bit more control. All right, so we've got vertical cuts that way, and now we'll do some horizontal cuts. And remember, this is a very fine dice. So now we'll make some lateral cuts, and now the key to this dish is the ciseler, and this is it. And it's just the action of making a very, very fine dice. And that's what we have here, ciseler. Okay, so that's it for our onion. So our onions are nice and very, very finely diced, ciselé. And the reason you do that is because you really don't want to get any bits of onion as you're eating this dish. So that's this helps the onion to just incorporate its flavor, but they just basically disappear in the tomatoes. So the next thing we're going to do is we've got our peeled tomatoes, and we are doing a technique called concassé. And so the 4 areas where you scored your tomato, just make a cut there. And to do this, you're going to make petals. And we're not going to use the inside portion of the tomato. We're just using the actual meat portion of the tomato. And so you can save that inside portion for salsa. You can save it for any other sauce that you might want to use that for. Okay, and next one. And boy, look how nice and ripe and fresh these tomatoes are. Very nice. Okay, and one last one. Now, the next thing that we're going to do with our tomatoes is, actually we'll make sure all of the seeds are out. That's good, that's good. And one last one. So what we'll do is we'll line our tomatoes up, and we're just going to make, and again, we don't want to smash our tomatoes, so we want to keep them intact. So we are making slices about, I don't know, maybe a centimeter or about 1/3 of an inch in width on these tomatoes. And then we'll just come down and dice them across. So these are they're just diced. And the reason we're being so careful with this and making sure this die stands is that we actually want to be able to still have a little bit of texture in the tomatoes. So that's great for our tomatoes. So that part is ready. And then the next thing that we have is our fresh thyme. And I'll just show one of the easiest ways to do this. To have the fresh thyme, we are just going to take the leaves, and the easiest way that I know to do this is just to hold the thyme here and just strip the leaves. And that's what we'll do with the thyme. So we'll finish the rest of these up and then we'll get to the stove. Our next step is to saute our onions, or to sweat our onions. So we've got some heat on this pan, and we're just using a small pan for this small amount of onions, and I've added some olive oil to the pan. So we are going to just put our onions in, and we're just going to cook those very gently until they're nice and translucent. And let's add just a little bit of salt. I always like to add a little bit of salt when we're sweating onions. All right. The salt actually helps to draw the moisture out of the onions, which then brings out the flavor as well. So we've got those on a very, very low heat. And now we're just going to cook those very gently, probably about 6 minutes or so, until they're very, very soft, and then we'll add our tomatoes. Once our onions are nice and soft, then we just will incorporate our tomatoes. And I'm actually going to pull this off the heat because we don't want to cook these too quickly. We just want to cook them very softly, very gently. There we go. And now to this, we'll add some thyme. And boy, it's amazing the flavor you get with just a small amount of fresh thyme leaves. And again, let's add just a little bit of salt to the mix. Not much, it doesn't take much salt at all. And let's put a little bit of freshly ground black pepper. And again, very small amount. And we will just let those cook over very low heat for just a few minutes. As a matter of fact, let's change. And we're just going to put these on another burner that's very low. In the meantime, we'll get our eggs going. So now it's time for our awesome French butter. So we will add, we're doing 3 eggs today, so let's add probably, I don't know, what is that? Half a tablespoon of butter to our pan. The best technique for cracking your eggs is not to do it on the side of the bowl like a lot of people do. For one thing, you end up getting eggshells in your egg, as well as salmonella that is carried on the outside of the egg. So I like to just crack them on the counter, then just open them into the bowl you're using, and then discard the shells. That way. Okay. And our eggs are nice and yellow. I like to add a little bit of salt to the eggs and just a little bit of pepper. And yes, I like to season those eggs before cooking. And I'm just going to take our pan off the fire for just a second while we whisk our eggs. So get them nice and whisked. All right, once our eggs are nice and whisked, we will then pour them in our pan. And again, this technique is called soft scrambling. So we are on a very, very low heat, and we want these eggs to cook very, very gently and very slowly. So the process is we just, as soon as it starts solidifying, we want to move that around. And this is really the key to this dish, is that you really don't, you don't want anything setting up too quickly. You want everything to just stay very, very soft. And if you notice things going faster than you want them to, then just take it off the heat, and there's nothing wrong with that. So the key to this dish is time. And just, this produces a wonderfully creamy egg that is just absolutely delicious. And don't worry about taking about 5 minutes to actually cook this egg, because that's what you want. This is the texture that we want, and this is what we're trying to produce. Okay. And just continuing. Can you see how nice and soft the curdles are there? We just really want very, very soft curdles in this egg. So finishing up, and you can see still how very, very creamy, even runny those eggs are. And believe me, the first time I had these eggs, I didn't think that I would like them, just because I'm used to the American way of having scrambled eggs, which, by the way, I still love. But this is just something different, and it's very classic French, and just very, very delicious. And if you've got a crowd that really likes theirs cooked a little bit more, you can certainly go a little bit further with it. But again, these are cooked. It's just that they're very, very soft and creamy. As a matter of fact, some chefs actually add cream to this dish. So any bistro that you go into in Paris, for sure, and many other places in France, will serve this dish, and it's just kind of the ultimate indulgent French breakfast. Okay, our eggs are done. And let's transfer those to our pan just like that. And we'll top our eggs with a little quenelle. And, just in case you want more, there's a little bit more of the concassé de tomate. Okay. And we'll just finish the dish with a little sprinkle of thyme. And there we have it. We've got soft scrambled eggs with crushed tomatoes, or œuf bouilli avec concassé de tomate. And we're going to enjoy this morning with this. Not only is it just a wonderfully indulgent breakfast, it can also be a keto breakfast. So this morning we've got scrambled eggs, tomatoes. I've got 2 different preserves that I've made of the rhubarb from our yard. So we've got one that I've made here that's completely a keto recipe of rhubarb jam, and then I've got a regular one. And I'm going to spread that on a little bit of keto bread with the rhubarb and strawberry jam, a little bit of orange juice, and an espresso. Okay, now this is the part we've been waiting for. Just a nice little taste of this soft scrambled eggs with the tomato concasse. And let's just go in right here, get a little bit of the concasse with the eggs. The depth of flavor of this is just incredible. I mean, the fact that we've used organic eggs, we've used wonderful French butter, we've used homegrown tomatoes and fresh thyme from the garden, that's enough in itself. That's one of the reasons it doesn't take very much seasoning for this. It's just because everything has such great flavor. And we've been doing a lot of keto type, I've been experimenting with a lot of keto type dishes recently, and so I've made this keto bread, and of course we've got some classic baguettes here as well. But so let's try this with some of the rhubarb jam. A great contrast to the eggs and the tomatoes. It's fantastic. Nice espresso, and I know this is not keto, but a little OJ to wash it down. So there you have it. French classic, soft scrambled eggs with crushed tomatoes. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more, give us a thumbs up below and hit that subscribe button, it's free. And ring the bell if you want to be notified as soon as we release a new video. Also, let us know in the comments if you have any special recipe requests. We really appreciate you tuning in. See you next time.
What's the French name?
Œuf brouillé avec tomate concasse. Concassé de tomate.
Œuf brouillé?
Œuf brouillé.
Oh, brouillé. Okay.